Welcome to the Quote Advantage Random Thought Show, proudly brought to you by Iron Edge.
The show where we talk about anything and everything in fitness and high performance.
All right, welcome to the show. I'm normally joined with Durham to my left, but today Durham has some appointments, so he couldn't make it in. Instead, I'm joined by one of our full-time senior performance coaches here, Meg Ragauskas. Meg, how you going?
I'm good. How are you?
Excellent, very good. You have an interesting last name. It's a lot more intimidating than it actually is once you learn it. What's the origin of Ragauskas?
It's Lithuanian. So my dad's side is Lithuanian. His mum and dad came over and escaped the war and came over here and started working.
So we're talking 40s, 50s?
Yeah. And they actually met each other here. They didn't actually meet over there, so they both escaped and similar timing and same place, both in Melbourne, and then met here and started a family. So that's kind of cute as well. It's kind of all just chance. And then mum's all full Aussie as well. So it's one extreme and then the other.
Nice, very nice.
Yeah.
So you have a very interesting life outside of Quote Advantage. You have done a bunch of stuff for not many years of life, packed a lot of stuff into your life. I thought it'd be worth if you could just take us through kind of, you don't have to give us a full family history or anything like that, but just your athletic career is quite interesting, I think. Where you've lived, your family has done some interesting stuff as well. So just start where you like. What were your parents like when you were growing up in terms of, because you're quite an adventurous, you do a lot of camping and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What was it like growing up in your household?
I guess it all stemmed from my parents. Like, we never stood still as a family. My dad's into everything, so all of the stuff I do comes from him. My mum just loved to do everything, so she just joined in. So rock climbing, camping, four-wheel driving, hiking, exploring, travelling, skiing, all of that stuff kind of came from them. So from the time I could walk, I had been also rock climbing. I had been skiing. I had been bush and camping and living in the dirt. All of that stuff kind of came as I grew up, and I kind of just continue it on as we go. We go rock climbing a lot with my dad. He does a lot of sailing as well, so that was a bit later on. I don't think he wanted the little guys to be walking around in the ocean and potentially falling overboard. But that's come a bit more later.
Yep.
And then it just stems from, like, none of us ever stopped. Like, any holidays, we were taking a bit out of school, not too crazy, just in primary school and stuff, and just to do stuff and just to explore.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
And so you were born in Australia?
Born in Australia, born in St Kilda Hospital, just here.
You haven't spent your entire childhood and adolescence growing up in Australia, did you? You moved around, along with the travel, you also actually lived in different places as well. Where did you live first and how long for?
Yeah, so I grew up here, and then when I was 14 in 2009.
So we're talking like year 7, year 8 kind of thing?
Yeah, so halfway through year 8, mum and dad were pretty much just like, we got a new business proposition, we want to start this new business. We have partners in America, in Canada and in Europe, so the time difference is really hard being over here. So why don't we move and start the new business? We'll move as a family and we'll live somewhere else for a little while.
And initially, so your parents are entrepreneurial in nature? Is it their own business or they were part of a bigger business?
Not necessarily. They kind of were, my dad, someone walked up to my dad, so one of my dad's good friends is an entrepreneur. And he came up to dad and he's like, he was a principal at a school, and so was my mum. My mum was a teacher, and then she was also an accountant. And then my dad went to Fujitsu, so he was in the IT and all that stuff. And then he just knew someone.
Fujitsu as in the air conditioning company?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep, the big one.
Because I was like, I've heard that word before. Yep.
Yeah, the one that you see all around. And then he was approached and was pretty much like, one of his good friends said, do you want to run this, be the CEO, run this business for us? You're a good man. I know you. I know how you work. I know your work ethic and all that stuff. And he was pretty much.
And he got offered the CEO gig.
Yeah, he was like, we have this proposition, like, we're all the investors, but I want you to do it all. I want you to run it. I want you to do everything.
Two follow-up questions.
Yes.
What was the business? And then what were your dad's credentials other than being a good bloke that got him that role?
Yeah, so the business is online training for airport personnel. So
that's a very, very narrow niche.
Yeah, so all of the people, like the safety, the disability, the security, the people that with the lights on.
So we're talking about the people who wave in planes and stuff like that?
That's part of it. All of that stuff, they obviously have to do a certain amount of training, and they have to go through processes to be qualified to work in that area.
Yeah, because that's a dangerous job for themselves, but also if you let someone who's inappropriately trained for that job, planes crash, kill lots of people.
Exactly.
Like, that's pretty high stakes stuff. So you want to be educated well in that.
Yeah, exactly. So none of the airport, like the people on the planes, and none of the stuff in the air, but everything on the base and on the ground. That kind of is where his work is and their job is. So he creates the training, and he works with obviously other people as well to create the training for them, and then
in terms of like the online modules kind of thing?
Yes, all online. And then airports buy their products, buy their training, and train their people up, and they go off. And certain people are certified in certain areas.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
What year did that start? What year was he approached?
So we left in 2009. I'm pretty sure it started in 2007-8.
And so he then started here in Australia, but then had to move to be closer to the hub of things.
Yeah, so we all kind of as a family talked about it in 2007-8-ish. I don't actually really remember.
So 11, 12 kind of thing. And you're one of three, aren't you?
I'm one of three, and I'm in the middle. So I have an older sister 2 years older, and then a younger sister who's 3 years younger. And so...
What are their names?
My older sister's Ella, younger sister is Lily.
Ella, Meg and Lily.
That's it, yep. And so they approached us, and we all sat down, and we're pretty much like, they were like, we won't move if any one of you guys doesn't want to move. Like, this is a big thing to do. It's at least 2 years.
That's some great parenting right there. Like, because you're all 8 through 15, so you're all old enough to be able to consciously aware of what the repercussions are, and then as a family, let's decide what are we going to do? Are we going to follow this opportunity? Yeah,
and so the first discussion was 2007-ish when it was starting to talk about. It actually started rolling over, and Dad actually started getting the job. And then I was quite young, and it was kind of like not really sure what we were getting ourselves into. And I was like, whatever, yeah, let's do it. Like, I'm going to be with you guys, so I don't mind. And then
Did your parents be like, we get to go to the snow a lot? And you're like, yes, I'm in. Don't care, let's go.
Well, initially, the first talk was Geneva.
Right.
So in Europe. Mm-hmm. And that was initially the first place we were going to go. That was where we were going to live. All French, so no English, and quite expensive as well, right. We learned. And so I believe, and my older sister could give me crap about this later, I believe that she was like, I don't think I want to do it. So we didn't. Yep. 2007, 8-ish, no. And then, so they kept the job. Dad kept going, waking up at crazy. Stayed in Australia. Kept waking up at crazy times for conferences and for calls for all our partners who are on the other side of the world.
Effectively working an American 9-to-5 schedule.
Exactly, and flying. So he was gone a lot and for long periods of time, because why would you fly to America for 3 days? You may as well go for 10 days.
And get a bunch of meetings and get a bunch of stuff done, makes sense.
Yeah, so he was doing longer trips, not as common, and it was killing him. He was hating it. So,
and like we talked about circadian rhythm just 2 episodes ago, it would have literally been killing him as well. Yeah,
he was struggling, and Mum wasn't too much of the business yet. Obviously, she was helping him out. She was doing some stuff herself back at home. She was doing the accounting stuff, because that's what she does, making sure everything was good, and the bank stuff and the money side of that and all that sorted. And then 2008. Reapproached the subject. All sat down again.
Another family meeting.
Family meeting. What do you guys reckon? How do you guys think? Again, me and my younger sister, who at that time was, if I was 13, she'd be 11, 10, 11. She was like, yeah, whatever. We're both like, yeah, why not? Like, I'll miss my friends, but we're coming back. It's not forever.
So the plan was always to do a short-term thing?
Always short-term. So when we initially talked about it, it was 2 years. We're just like, we'll go. Dad sets everything up, gets those partnerships going, all of the airports know who we are, know what's going on.
So is it a competitive space, airline safety education? Or are they in a vacuum? Are they just the only ones providing it?
I don't think there's too many other people that provide the stuff that they provide. And Dad very much is like, well, if there's a gap, we may as well fill it.
Right, so they're quite a complete solution.
The business is continually adding more and more and more, and he's come to learn that airports, as much as they look organised on the outside,
no,
not very.
Full mess on the inside.
Oh, it depends obviously of the airport and of the people in charge, but there's always some gaps that need to be filled. So he kind of realised as he was going, well, we got this part going and these training sections
Now, don't say
going.
anything here that's going to get your dad in trouble either.
I know, yeah, of course.
Or the airports.
And I'm not saying any airports in particular, and I actually don't know a huge amount. Like, they've grown and expanded so much that there's so many things that I still don't know that they do because I'm not actually part of the business. But yeah, from that point where we moved over to just get roots going to now, 8 years later, it's 3 to 4 times as big as what it started to be. So that's great for them. But it just was the two of them to start with.
Yep.
Anyway, 2008.
So 2008, second conversation, back on track.
Yeah, rewind. Yeah, 2008, reapproached the subject with all of us and everyone said, yeah, let's do it. They pretty much said it's not Geneva anymore, too expensive.
Surprise, we're not going to Europe anymore.
Yeah. And we were like, oh, that would have been really cool. Like, we could have travelled everywhere, but
Learned
obviously
some French,
the language barrier and the money was an issue. And then Mum wasn't super keen about living in America and education and, private health insurance and all that stuff. Yep. And so we said, well, there's a partner, he has a partner in Montreal, in Canada. So we're like, all right, well, that's like perfect middle ground. It's technically bilingual in Montreal, so French and English, so we get a little bit of both.
Nice.
And it's not quite America.
So you can learn a new language but not be completely lost at sea with only be having to speak French. So it's like, bonjour, English, and then you go from there.
Yeah. Do you speak English? Yeah, exactly. So we moved to Montreal in Canada, and it started off as 2 years and then it ended up being 3 years and then 5 years.
5 years.
5 years.
And so you did pretty much all your high schooling then in Montreal?
Yeah, so I did a year here, year 7, and then half of year 8 that doesn't really count. We had to go over halfway because of this timings for school and went back. I had to go back into year 8.
So you did 18 months of year 8. 18
months of year 8. It was great. And then all the way through to and because it was French, I only went to the year 11. And then there was this seizure, which is pretty much like a transition between high school and university. It's 2 years, and it kind of
like a junior college kind of thing, yeah?
Exactly. So it's kind of like year 12 and 13. And then majority of the degrees in Montreal were shorter because you have a 13th year in this seizure.
So instead of being 4 years of college, it was kind of 2-year transition, junior college-ish.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you had like a 4-year degree here, a lot of the times it was a 3-year degree. Yep. Sometimes it's different, depends on the course.
Depends what you're doing, yep.
So I went all the way through and started seizure, which technically would be of my year 12.
Not a very nice name for...
Well, it's French, but yeah.
So what does it translate to?
I don't know. I should know.
Should have scrubbed up.
Yeah, I should have probably.
That's right.
It's a junior college, and then I did a year of that in just science, like general science.
Mm-hmm.
And
so in seizure, you specify then? You start being a little more specific with what you want to study?
Yeah, exactly. So the field. And so it's all kind of general. You can go specific, but there's, general science, there's arts, there's marketing, there's business, kind of like the degrees we have in here.
Kind of like the college system as well, where you start with just broad subjects within a field, and then you get towards the end and you go, okay, no, I want to do kinesiology, I want to do physio, I want to do education, and you can go down funnels that way. Yeah.
And that's kind of when you move on to uni and you get your master, you get your degree, you get anything like that in the specifics, and you actually kind of know what you want to do in that sense. So lots of people can spend more time in seizure in that middle ground, but majority of people do spend the 2 years and then go on.
Yeah, cool.
But you don't necessarily have to go on either. At the end of seizure, you can be qualified in certain things, so you can go on and work in that area as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
And so through high school, before seizure, did you know you wanted to do science?
Yeah.
Did you know you wanted sports science, strength and conditioning, exercise physiology, things along this line? Did you know this is kind of where you were heading?
Yeah, I always knew this was the field. I never knew specifics, and it's still kind of like there's so many options. But I always knew that I wanted to be in the health and the athletic development because I played.
Which was going to be my next question. Is
because I played.
So you were an athlete over there in Canada at the same time, so you played exclusively basketball?
Yeah, exclusively basketball. And so I dabbled, high school, volleyball, a little bit of tennis.
As you do, yep.
Bits and pieces, and they were all great. But basketball was always the one and only. And down here I played netball and tennis as well. But my mum said I had to pick between netball and basketball because the basketball's clashing with the netball. I was getting a little bit too aggressive. So I had to figure out which one I wanted to do, and I chose basketball, and that kind of flowed on from there.
Nice. And so you played high school in Canada. Is it similar to the American system in terms of you play for your high school, you have tournaments in your region or state kind of area?
Not so much.
No.
Not where I was. No, not so much, because there was a rep side as well.
Right. So more like the Australian model.
Yes. So juniors was more like the Australian model.
So for our American listeners, here in Australia you don't play as much for your high school. There is a high school team, but typically you'll play your basketball for a club. So here in Melbourne, we have a very strong basketball population. So you'll play for Melbourne Tigers or Dandenong Rangers or Bulleen Boomers, someone like that who's in your area, your sort of area within the city. And then you'll play Friday night tournament, like a season effectively, which lasts pretty much the entire year. And you'll play in Division 1 or Division 2 and you'll play against them. You will also play for your high school, but it's not as prestigious as a competition as the representative clubs.
So it was probably a little bit more than here for high school. Like school was quite serious and you get taken out of school and stuff for the games every now and then. But there was rep for juniors.
And so you played for a club?
Played for a club.
What club did you play for?
I played for Dawson Blues, which is
Blues.
the juniors for Dawson College, which was a CJEP. So that's a CJEP I went to.
Which is to keep things all tied in, because my brain works better in the American system. Obviously very new to the Canadian. So effectively a JUCO college system.
So Dawson was one of the junior colleges, and so they had their junior squad.
And so that rep was kind of a feeder into the
into the into the
So if you played rep for Dawson Blues as a teenager, you're more likely to go to Dawson for your seizure.
It's easier access, I guess. It's a step in the door. And so Dawson was very close to where I lived, and that's one of the reasons I played rep there as well. And it was also a bit more English. It was one of the more English junior colleges than some of the others. Like there was Montreal and all that stuff, which was just all French.
So when you say it was bilingual, do you really mean it was 80-20 French?
Depends where you go.
Really?
Yeah, so some suburbs it would be 90 French, 10% English. Other suburbs, which is where I lived, it was 80% English and 20%
Really? So within
French.
one city, you could live in the French side of town or the English side of town.
And then schools are the same. So there was French-based schools and English-based schools.
So it's at one school, you could be learning English as first language and doing French as your LOT, language other than English. And then just down the road, you could be doing the exact opposite.
So that's usually the regions in the schools kind of correlate. So I lived in an English area and I went to an English-based school. So all my subjects were taught in English and I had French as a second language. But people who lived 20 minutes away from me, all their subjects were taught in French and English was their second language.
Now, I know this is not sports science related or strength and conditioning or anything, but this is just so fascinating. Does that mean you go to Starbucks on one side of the town and the menu is in English and you go to the other side and it's in French?
So all signs and all menus are both.
So everything that's communal is doubled.
Yes.
Right. Gotcha.
So everything is doubled, and I'm pretty sure the Quebecois, so the native French people in Quebec, so Montreal's in Quebec, they are very, very much like French is great. And so they...
Just a little bit of bias there.
A little bit. And so most of the signs in Montreal have French first and bigger. A little bit bigger than the English.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
And then the English is underneath or after or a little bit smaller, so that the French is more predominant because they really do feel strongly about their language and their culture, because Quebec in the whole of Canada is pretty much the only place that has French still. Everything else is all English. So it's a whole different culture.
Well, the world is kind of going like that, where everything's becoming more and more Englishified.
Yeah. But even this whole time, like back in history and all that stuff, Quebec has always been French dominant and everything else outside of it has always been English dominant. So they're very, very, very much attached to their French and their culture, which makes sense. Cool. Yeah, they want to kind of keep that going.
Okay, that's me nerding out. Let's get back on track. So you played Dawson Blues High School.
Yes.
You then went to Dawson
College,
which is
CJEP,
Junior College. You played 2 years there?
So I played 1 year there, and then that actually took us to the 5 years. So then I did so I did my high school, so from year 8 to year 11, and then I did my year 12 at the junior college, and that was 1 year at Dawson, so playing it at the college as well.
And so from an athletics point of view, was that similar to a junior college in America for level of competitiveness and talent and all that sort of thing?
Yes, I think so. And I mean, America has a very high standard. There's a lot of colleges out there, so it's probably
very varied.
Yeah, very varied, but it would fit in. Okay. So we had summer season, obviously. So during the summer, those few months where school was off and college was off, you'd have a summer team. And that is pretty much your development squad for your team throughout the season.
Cool.
So they kind of create the team, they bring the young ones up from the juniors, and then the ones who are coming back next year stay in that team, and that summer team travels. So we would pretty much travel to America, and we would have tournaments all through North America, Northeast America, because that's where we were. So we actually drove down to Washington sometimes, you know, we went to New York a few times, we did all that stuff, Maryland, all those places.
Yeah, right. So you effectively got a year of college experience.
Yeah, pretty much. And so I had 2 summers and then 1 season, which was great fun. The summers were amazing. You get to travel with everyone and you get to experience both sides of the border, which is quite interesting, I found. Like, as a personal being so foreign, I got to experience the Canadian side and the American side.
Playing for the Canadian team in America.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And there was always a difference between the two, but ultimately it's very similar. The process of it all, and, you know, the scouting and people coming in and all of that stuff. So, yeah, so I played a year. And then...
You're a very humble person, so you'll never admit this, but Meg is a flat-out baller. She can play. Did you consider staying on to continue with your college career from an athletics point of view when the family came back? How'd that go from it? Because you want to go back and see friends. It's been 6 years. You want to, return to your life of, I suppose, normalcy, if it can be considered that anymore in Australia. But was a big part of you like, I could do a 4-year college thing and have an athletic career and do that kind of side of things? Yeah,
so the last 2 to 3 years of my time in Canada, that was not my dilemma, but was on my mind, always in the back of my mind.
Back of the head, because the family's going, any minute now we'll go back home, and you're like, or I could stay.
Maybe. Yeah, exactly. So the last year we kind of knew, so halfway through the 5th year, Mum and Dad knew they were going back. And at that time, we were all at an age where they would be like, we will help you, we will set you up, but we're going back. You don't have to come back, obviously. You can make your own decisions. Yeah, you can make your own decisions. That time I was 18. You can continue playing. We'll help you out and set you up before you leave, but it's totally up to you. And that was a really hard decision because I really wanted to stay. I loved my team, and my team was... I could communicate better with half of them than the other. In college, that whole French school, French people, English school, English people disappears.
Oh, right. People go to the schools.
People go to the junior college to play. So it's quite competitive just from the sport sense. So half my team was...
Is it a scholarship situation where you can get scholarship?
Some people, yeah.
Did you get one?
No. But it was quite cheap.
Yeah.
So it was fine.
It didn't really matter. So it's not a huge factor.
Hardly anything.
And does that make you a walk-on, or you were part of the team anyway? Like, how does that work?
No, part of the team. So the coach at that time saw me playing in the juniors and asked me to come and play.
Okay, so you were recruited.
I was recruited, yeah. And so I was pretty much like I'm halfway through my 2 years here, and that kind of sets you up to either go to a uni in Canada and play very well, like lots of good unis in Canada.
And good, strong competition.
Yeah, very strong. Or he would have helped me get into... a college in America because he has connections because he's been doing it for a long time. So I was like, well, what do? Like, do I stay here for another year and then potentially go and play for another 4 years after that, or do I go home with my family? And it was huge. I didn't know what to do. And
how long did it take you to make the decision?
Probably the whole season.
Full 6 months?
Full at least 6 months, maybe closer to 8.
Wow.
Because I really love the game, but I also understood that I would have pretty much no support group. I was here by myself.
Solo,
yeah, and lots of people do it, and it would have been fine. But because I was so used to my support group and I was so happy with my support group, I didn't want to leave them. And I had a really, 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 really close friend who she pretty much said, move in with me until you figure yourself out. And the last year of college, well, you just live at my house, and I was their other daughter. They lived, a 7-minute walk from my house. We had all our subjects together at the end of this CJEP year. So even her parents were like, yeah, just come live with us for your last year of Dawson, and then after that you can figure yourself out. So I did have a support group there. But yeah, ultimately I did decide to come back. And every now and then I think about, I wonder what it would have been like for the extra 4 years instead of just doing 1 to do 5 years over there.
Is that from a position of regret or from a position of just curiosity?
I really do think it is curiosity.
So you don't regret coming back? It's just more like, I wonder if the parallel universe version of me did that.
Yeah, I wonder how it would have gone. I wonder if I would have loved it. And I think right now I think that more than before. Before I was very much at the end of the year happy with my decision because I love basketball and I love playing, but it was your whole life. It was everything.
Consuming.
It was very consuming. You went to uni, and your courses and your uni was around your basketball, obviously, first thing. So any of the athletes at the junior college, they got to choose their courses and choose their timetable before any of the other general pop. So all the athletes chose their timetable and got the slots they wanted. So
it's similar to the American system where they're the VIPs and the rock stars of the school.
Yeah.
You guys pick first and training works around.
And it wasn't
just
basketball.
Schedule. Yeah.
It was all of them. It was hockey. It was volleyball. It was everything.
Yep.
Yeah. So we always got the week before the openings.
Nice.
We would go into uni and we'd go in we'd all have an academic advisor. We'd have tutoring sessions and all that stuff throughout the year because obviously you have to get your grades up and at a certain standard to continue to play because it is a lot of time.
Yep. So there's still a grade requirement. So you are a student athlete.
Yeah. And so because it was an English school, some of the Frenchies struggled a bit more. And so they would just get more tutoring and we would all help them out because obviously they're a great player.
Yeah,
so they don't get their grades up, then we obviously want them to play and we want them to do well. One of the girls obviously wanted to continue on to uni, so we had to make sure that she was going well. So we kind of a group thing.
Nice.
It's a team effort, I guess,
That's great,
all the time. But yeah, it was all the time. You get up, you go, you have your uni, you go to whatever courses. After that, you go training every night. Monday to...
Every night?
Yeah, training every night. Sometimes it was not as extreme. Sometimes it was just plays, but you would be in the gym every night and then you'd play.
Weights room? Did you have much of an S&C program at this level?
Should be more. Knowing what I know now, should be a lot more. There was a room and they had hours that we were in there and during the later half of the season we did more. And I think that if I went back now, the 4 years after, it would be better. Yep. It's kind of just emerging when I was there.
A lot of the colleges, like the Div 1 colleges, have full-time staff and they've got programs and stuff.
This place wasn't like that. So first of all, technically it wasn't a university. It was just a seizure. So
a JUCO equivalent. Yep.
Yeah. And so we didn't have that type of staff, but they did try. And I think that they probably would be better now if I went.
Yeah, a lot of the I'm going to say the word lower levels, it doesn't mean anything, still great schools, but the ones that are playing at a lower level of competition, their programs are getting better and better every year.
Yeah.
Because they've got access to equipment's being knowledge and all those sort of things are being more readily available.
Yeah.
So there are more programs that have S&C and more programs that have athletic trainers and physiotherapy and all those sort of things involved as well. So it's getting better across the board.
Yeah, pretty much.
Plus you'd go back and run it and it'd be fantastic. So.
Exactly. I would tell them what to do and how to do it and when to do it. So it wasn't as big as I would have liked probably. And then, you'd play your game. You'd play your game Friday. This is testing my memory. Play Friday, train Saturday, Sunday off.
And repeat.
Wow. And that was lower standards than what I was expecting in America. So that was... And my coach
so you're
would say...
it would ramp up from 6 days
from there.
if you were to go to a college.
And some colleges do. They'll do morning and afternoons and, they'll do shooting around as well. We were required to go to the trainings, and our coach obviously wanted us to do as much personal development as we could.
Skills and touch and stuff.
But it was not, required. So, half my mornings, we didn't have to go to the gym or anything like that. We just got there in the afternoons. Whereas some colleges, they expect you to get there mornings and afternoons.
I think that's a huge thing that a lot of the kids in Australia who are going over there aren't ready for.
Yeah.
From a talent point of view, from an athleticism point of view, often they're like for like. They can match it with a lot of the American players.
Yeah.
But it's that ability to every single day put in work. Mm-hmm. Every day you're on the court.
Mm-hmm.
And the coach is yelling at you and you're running drills and if you forget, you're running laps. And and then you've got an S&C program on top of that and you've got class. It's a full-time job. So you think you're getting and you get a fantastic scholarship and you get a free education if you're lucky enough and you get into that sort of position, but you got to earn it.
Yeah.
You're away from home, you're away from your family, and they are going to work you hard.
Yeah. So, and again, I'm not complaining at all. It was amazing. But by the end of the season, I was like, do I want to do this for another 4 to 5 years? And I decided no, I don't. I'm happy to just play and I'm happy to keep competing. I definitely wanted to keep playing when I came back here. But I felt like I had a taste and that was kind of nice and it was good enough.
You did the tourist equivalent of college.
Yeah, the speed college.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. So, I did 18 months of college life and then I was like, well, that was amazing, but let's get on with it. There's a lot of things ahead of me that I want to do and And as much as I love it, it's not the only thing. As you already know, I have a lot of other things I like to do.
Which we're more than halfway through and we haven't even touched on yet. So that's awesome. Nice work. Coming back to Australia.
Yes.
What was it like?
Surprisingly very easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a few people that I missed over there a lot, and I continue to. And luckily, one of my best friends, the same one who lived close to me, I've seen her a few times since coming back. She's come down this way, and I've gone up to see her.
I think she came to visit for a workout, didn't
yes,
I think we've met.
Did. Yeah, you met her. So she's amazing. I miss her a lot. She was like my second half. But it was very easy to slide back in. Luckily, I had amazing friends. Only, a year and a half of high school, and I came back and I messaged them and I just said, hey guys, I'm back.
What have I missed?
Yeah, exactly. So I came back twice within the 5 years, around Christmas.
Oh yeah, so it's still good. It's not like it was isolation.
Yeah, and I saw them for maybe, one catch up, so a few hours each time I was back. And so I still hang out with them.
That's great.
So that's amazing.
Cool.
That's probably why it felt so easy, because obviously I had my family with me, which is one half, and extended family here, and then a few of my friends who were happy enough to let me just slide right back in.
Nice. And so then you didn't miss a beat with your basketball, did you?
No. So there was probably about 6 months of transition because, again, with the schooling
and all that stuff. What time did you come back?
I came back in August. So it was the end of the season for them. And so I had a few months before tryouts.
This is for the Australian Big V you're talking about? Yep.
Yes, yeah. So Youth League was what I tried out for, and I didn't really know what to expect. Like, I left so long ago, I didn't really know the standards or anything, but I used to play at Sandy Sabres. So I was like, well, I used to go there, may as well go back, nice and local. So I tried out with them later in the year, a few months after August when normal tryouts are, and I got into youth. Nice. And first year there was a struggle. Not good.
Youth League for our American listeners is
it's like development.
It's a development pathway for our semi-elite pro league here, which is now called, I forgot what it's called, NBL1.
Yes, there you
go. So we have NBL, National Basketball League. NBL1 is your semi-professional sort of step between, intermediate sort of step. I suppose you'd call it like your G League to the NBA, if you will, in America.
Yep.
Not quite the same level, but it's still still a great league. And then below that you have a youth league, which is under 23s, which is the feeder into those NBL1 teams.
Yeah, so it's just the next tier down.
Yeah, so
and they all kind of relate between each other. They all transition between each other. Some of the girls who play youth will go up to NBL1 and vice versa.
And some of them go on to college. Like, it's kind of a feeder into our Australian mature adult programs in terms of elite basketball, but a lot of athletes who play a couple of years of youth will then go on to college, because college is still kind of a lot of the goals for a lot of athletes here in Australia.
Yeah, and it's quite exciting for a lot of people here.
Yeah, and
I was lucky enough to experience it.
I was lucky enough to sit on the bench for a season. It's very, very good to watch, yeah.
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to experience for a good amount of time, and it's a lot of fun for a lot of people, but it's definitely not for everyone. So
how many seasons did you play? And you tried out at Sabres, got in?
So at Sabres, got into the youth league.
How many seasons did you play?
Oh gosh, I played 3.
3 seasons. How many championships did you win?
2.
Not bad.
Did I play 3 or 4? Maybe 4.
4 seasons.
4 seasons. And the last 2, we won championships. Back to back.
And did you then age out? So did you become too old to play, or did you choose to? Because you were, at the same time as this was happening, Meg interned here.
Yeah.
She started working for us part-time and then was looking to progress to full-time, become one of our performance coaches.
Yeah. It was kind of like the crux of the whole thing. It was quite hard. But, yeah, I technically aged out of youth. And then so the next step for me was to go up in a grade.
Which is to what's now called NBL1.
The NBL1, or the middle ground between the two, which is Big V.
Yeah, so below NBL1 there are other senior competitions which are lower on the elite level, and they're at different clubs will have either teams in NBL1 or in Big V Champ or Big V Div 1.
Exactly. So I either stayed in the club I was in and go NBL1, or go to a different club and play Big V
and go through the tryout process again.
Exactly. But the big decision for me was, if I was going to continue to play, I'd probably play NBL1. I may as well try. The time.
Yeah.
The time was a huge influence, because I was at a point now where it's like, well, do I want to continue? It's going to be more time going up in a division and develop, like, individual development and making sure that I'm at a good stage to be able to play at that higher level.
Because you'll go from being one of the big dogs in the big fish in the small pond to a smaller fish in a bigger, more elite, fully grown adult pond.
Exactly. And I was very aware that I would be a small fish for the first season, as everyone else. Like, you have to go through that transition. Was I prepared to be a small fish and sit on the bench and not do a lot on the court? And
a whole bunch of training.
So a lot of time and for me, I just want to play. For me, it's all about playing. Training sucks all the time.
Really? So you're one of those just get me on the court, let me play kind of athletes?
Yeah. I'm very much like, if we're scrimmaging at training, I'm fine. But
as soon as it becomes drills.
Yeah, I'm not a drill person. I just want to play all the time. If we played 2 times a week and trained once, flipped around, I'd be so happy. And that's good and bad. I am a bit of a jet. I do struggle to calm down sometimes on the court.
You've got one speed.
Yeah, so the last season was very much fluctuant, me being able to fluctuate up and down because I was one of the older girls, so I had to control other people's on switch.
You
and
had to be a leader.
Them turn down, so that was a great learning curve for me. But yeah, I was pretty much do I sit on a bench and not play much and train a lot, or do I stop playing for a year and do all my other hobbies and have a bit more of a weekend? Because, you play either Saturday, Sunday, one of the 3 options. So I didn't really, and I work here on a Saturday, so I didn't really have a weekend. So I was like, do I want to continue basketball or do I want to do all my other things? Again, huge decision.
And so it's not just about do you want to do your hobbies. It was also Core Advantage wanted you to go full time.
Yes.
We wanted to make you a full time coach here, and so
yes.
take on more responsibility, take on more roles within the business.
And that conflicted with my training as well.
So you can't have it all. You can't have your hobbies and your semi-professional basketball career and your career in sports science, strength and conditioning.
Exactly. So I decided to take a gap year from basketball and just stop. I haven't gone back.
That's this year.
That was this year. So we're at the end. So at the playoffs of the season that I did not play. So
does that mean we're going back into decision mode now?
Yeah, so 2019 was my year off, and by now theoretically I should be kind of thinking about what I want to do next season, but I probably won't go back.
Yeah, because let's talk about, so obviously you've got your role here. Do you want to talk about that first, or do you want to talk about the fun stuff that you do outside of Core Advantage?
I don't mind. We can talk about here. We're here and we're already
let's talk about your role here at Core Advantage, because you're in your gap year. Your role here has expanded
huge
significantly as the business grows and as with the new fit out in the gym and with all this stuff we're doing, the level of complexity that we're delivering is increasing, which means there is more responsibility, more roles, more organisation to keep that level of delivery up.
Yeah.
So what's your role within that?
So I have multiple, as you know.
We all do. When you're a small business, we've got 6 full-time staff with about 30 different roles. So we share them. So I do the education stuff, but I do it in conjunction with Durham provides feedback on the videos, and you guys help find research for me. It's very much a collaborative result. But what sort of stuff are your main focuses in a day-to-day?
So the biggest one would be programming. So training the athletes, the strength and conditioning side. So creating programs, doing the consults, rehabbing.
Onboarding new athletes.
Onboarding new athletes, getting people back to playing or playing better, increasing athletic performance, which is a huge part of this business.
The core. It's the core.
It is this. And then there's a lot of behind the scenes with that. So talking with physios and updating on injuries and talking with parents and the kids and admin stuff, which is always the fun stuff.
It still amazes me how many people I have conversations with where they're like, when you open, your gym, what are your hours? It's 4 to 8 during the week, and then in the morning on Saturday, and they're like, what do you do for the rest of the day? You just go surfing? It's like, no, there's all that
there's
stuff.
So many things. And of course there's projects. We all have our own projects, so development stuff for the business, which is all just up and coming. Everything that we've created obviously is started from scratch. It takes us all time and effort to get to where it's presentable and for you guys all to see and stuff. So one of the other ones I do is with the school. So I work with Eltham College as part of Core Advantage. So I go over there and we create programs for them online and check up with them once a term, and then they do their programs and we check them out online and make sure everything's good to go.
Yep. And you're running our swimming ADP, so Athletic Development Program. You're in charge of the swimming side of things in terms of how the program as a whole looks, how it's heading, where those individual athletes are within that program.
Yes.
How's that coming along?
Great. Oh, they're all so good. The beautiful thing about swimmers is it's all time oriented, so it's numbers.
You can really, like, it's CGS sports, centimeters, grams, and seconds. Yeah. When you can measure the results, that's really nice.
Yeah, so they're all tracking along really well. States is coming up soonish.
What are we at? Short course?
Yeah.
End of short course, are we?
Yeah. So a few of them are in the States, I think, next weekend. So that's very exciting.
Good luck, guys.
Yeah, very, very much good luck. So they're all going really well. And so we keep in contact, me and Darren mostly keep in contact with the coaches there and make sure that we're getting good feedback from them as well as the athletes and everyone there, because obviously they need to see things going on and they always have great input for us. So that's going really well.
That's one of the tricky parts about working in the private sector in strength and conditioning is if you're at a footy club, if you're at a basketball club, whatever it is, you work side by side with the head coach and the head trainer and the general manager all day, every day. So if you want to have a conversation, it might be hard to get the general manager, but you can usually get get the ear of an assistant coach or a head coach and go, hey, these guys are beat, they're doing this, they're doing that, or these guys need more of this, and you can then adjust the program. For us, because we're a private company, we do just the S&C side of things, that liaison and that communication with other coaches is really critical.
Yeah, it's so important and it's not as easy.
And it's time consuming, because they've got their own schedules, we've got our schedules, there's a number of athletes, so you have to have multiple coaches.
Yeah, so I try as hard as I can to get all those goals and stuff from the athletes, and parents sometimes have some interesting things to say, so you take as much on as you can and see what everyone says and stuff, but sometimes it's just not possible to get in contact with the coaches, so you have to make do with what you've got. But those guys are great over there at Chelt Swim Club. They're doing awesome things and they're great with their feedback, and it's just very easy to go both ways.
It's a nice synergistic program.
Yeah.
So had you ever worked with swimmers before, taking on, because you effectively took on point for that, effectively took over the responsibility of managing their season, their periodization and their tapering and stuff like that?
Yeah, and one of the reasons, not because anyone else wasn't there, it was just because we wanted one person to be able to liaison with the coaches and one person to know all the athletes, because they're all part of one club.
Exactly. You kind of need a point for these type of jobs, and so you took that on. Had you worked with swimmers much before that?
Not much. So lots of research for me.
Yeah.
Initially.
How'd that go, and what sort of stuff did you learn? What was your approach to learning those things?
Well, the idea was...
Many questions there. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, that's okay. So my approach to it was pretty much like, pretend like I know nothing. Let's learn how to swim.
Just go right back to first principles, exactly. Really rookie mode it.
Like, what are the strokes? And different strokes have different requirements from the body. I know anatomy and I know how biomechanics, how the body kind of moves. So let's have a look at the fundamentals of what they do in the pool, and then let's peel that back and then figure out, okay, well, if they're doing that, the demands on the body. And research and YouTube were the two main parts. So actually physically watching them swim. And then I got a great amount of feedback from the coaches there. They have videos and stuff, so I could physically see how some of my swimmers themselves swim.
And then you can ask questions like, is this optimal? What are you looking to improve? What's deficient here?
Exactly. So like some of them you see them kick and they have an anterior tilt. So you're like, okay, well, we got to work on their core and get them fix that up, because that obviously isn't good. Some people
creating drag and
kicking from their knees instead of their hips. Like for them to be able to, you be able to see them as an individual, you be able to see all the little bits and pieces where they as an athlete and themselves have to work on. And then, just researching the requirements from each muscle area and all that stuff. And then all these guys in here and you guys, and questions, lots of questions for you guys and all that stuff.
Yeah, and so while you're the head of the swim side of things and you're running point on that program, it's still a collaborative thing. It's like, let's have a staffing, hey, what are you guys seeing with such and such in the gym? Or do you know much about butterfly? Or do you know much about the turn? And we work those things out together. Yeah.
Exactly. It's all a team in here. So everyone is great about giving me feedback. Like they all love to put their 2 cents in a great way.
In a positive,
very positive way, which I love. I'm like, give it all to me. It's great. The more information you have, the better.
I think that's such an important part, and it's one of the things I enjoy most about working here is that feedback doesn't feel like there's static. Doesn't feel like, I don't want to tell Meg that because she'll be offended. It's like, no, it's like she might have just missed that, or she might not have considered, or she might have considered and had a reason not for using it. I'm just going to bring it up and just go, we looked at that, but for these reasons that doesn't apply. Oh, okay, you obviously thought more about this, or thanks, I didn't realize that at the time. I'll see how that incorporates. That's a good point.
And it goes the other way as well. Like everyone knows everyone's here for a reason. Everyone's quite intelligent in this building. So if someone asks a question, There's no worry that, when you're in class and you ask a question, I feel like I'm stupid, I should know this question. There's none of that here.
Yeah.
You ask a question because you want to know what everyone thinks. It's not because you don't know, it's because you want to get different opinions. And so that's a great outlook to have as well, and a great environment to ask questions in as well.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
And it's all about getting the best shot for the athletes. So it's like, have you thought about this for this person because of this injury? Great point. We should incorporate more of that, or we should do less of this and stuff like that. Yeah, it's a really good point.
Yeah.
What else are you doing here at Corporate? Anything else? Any other projects you're working on that you can tell us about? Some of them are under wraps because they're not at a point to be revealed yet. But anything else that's worth sharing?
Well, initially I was very much in charge of the online programming. So getting used to Team Builder.
Our new online development stuff where we do programming outside of the gym.
Yep. So very much getting used to the platform and Team Builder and how it all functions and how it will function in the future and what it would be good for and what it needs work on or what we need to be aware of.
Strengths and weaknesses.
Exactly. And so we've got remote athletes now, and we've got people that don't come in and see us weekly, but they will see us remotely, so once a month, and some who are so far away and in interstate only don't see us. Like they saw us for a consult and then we program online and we chat to them online.
We don't have any internationals yet, do we? Just interstate? Just
interstate right now, yeah. No internationals yet. There was talk about one or two, but nothing's actually come through yet.
Yep.
So yeah, kind of fine-tuning, I think, a little bit more until we take that extra step, just making sure it's really spot on.
Yeah, nice. Because the delivery of your online stuff in terms of like video content and delivering the programs and making the programs understandable, because you're not going to be there to watch every rep.
Yeah.
So it is quite a different dynamic in terms of coaching and delivery. So
Yeah. But now everyone's on board with that. Like everyone has their own remote athletes, so we all have a few each. And so that's kind of everyone's job now. But initially that was one of mine to transition into that. And then that's about it. I mean, obviously there's lots of other things developing and going on and changing, but they're the big rocks.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk hobbies now? Let's talk fun stuff. Not that work isn't fun, but the stuff outside. So you've had your gap year this year from basketball, stepped away from structured sport.
Yes.
What's the thing that you were like, I just need to do a whole bunch of this?
Well, the problem is I have too many hobbies. So there's a lot of things that I want to do more of, and I still feel like I don't get enough time to do all the things I like to do.
Just need that 8th day a week, don't you?
I do. I just need an extra day a week to do, because I was talking about the rotation there. I have 5 different things I love to do. So, that means it's at least 5 weeks before I do it again because I want to do it all. And I'm like, well, it's too much, not enough time because I can't get every weekend off. It's a struggle. But water sports. So water skiing, wakeboarding, kneeboarding, all that stuff.
More summertime thing. That's okay. So you can block that into 3 or 4 months.
Yeah. So that's just about to start up, which is very exciting. So that's about October, November when we start doing that.
Where do you go for that?
We usually go to the Murray.
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty good, and river's better because there's a flow. It makes it kind of nicer to go on. I
know nothing about water sports. I've talked to Maddie Boyer, who's
I'm not that good.
who's a crazy national level water skier.
Yeah, she's amazing.
I've talked to her and picked her brain a little bit mostly about the injuries and the danger.
Yes, we've had some interesting stories at the Murray. Only a few concussions, nothing major yet, so that's good.
Yeah, water sport is a pretty extreme sport.
Yeah, it's good fun though, and especially in the summer because you're next to the water. It's so refreshing. And then extreme opposite to that, skiing and snowboarding.
Oh, well, that's okay. So that's not 5 things you have to do all at once. You can do some in the winter. You got your winter extreme sport and you got your summer extreme sport.
Exactly. So we're in the midst of our ski season right now. And so I'm actually going skiing this weekend.
Nice.
I'm leaving after work on Saturday and going up for a Sunday day trip, which will be nice.
Nice. I'm up the weekend after to Bull Up for 3 days.
Nice.
So I'm taking the Saturday off and going up Thursday morning.
Lucky guy. Yeah, no, I recently took a Saturday off to go rock climbing, so I had to not take this one off.
Be a team player, nice.
So that's another one, rock climbing.
Do you ski or board?
Both, technically.
What do you prefer?
Right now, I prefer boarding. I grew up skiing,
yep.
So that was one of the things I did as soon as I could walk. So grew up skiing. My dad and my mum are very good skiers. And then about a year before I left, so 2008, I decided to jump on a board and just see how it was because I'd been skiing my whole life and I loved it. It was very exhilarating. I'm a bit of an adrenaline junkie, just a little bit.
Just a touch.
So the boarding was a little bit more extreme and I kind of liked that. So I bought myself a board and I've been boarding ever since.
So you're a boarder then?
So I am a boarder.
Yeah.
But I do like touring a little bit on the skis.
What's touring?
So touring is pretty much when, and not many people like it because it's hard work, it's when you walk up.
Less adrenaline, more sweat?
Yes, definitely. You walk up the mountain in your skis to ski down it.
That sounds horrible.
Yeah.
Sounds absolutely horrible.
Don't do it as much, but you have to do it, or my board doesn't allow me to do it. So you can get boards that turn into snowshoes. So they clip in the middle.
Yeah,
so then you unclip them and you snowshoe up the mountain and then clip it together and board down.
That's cool.
Whereas with skis, you have this felt furry stuff and it sticks on the bottom side of your ski and so it only goes like, it only allows you to go up and not down.
It's like snow Velcro.
Yes.
That's so cool.
So you can slide your ski up and then the way the fabric works doesn't let your ski come down.
It's exactly like Velcro.
So you just like kind of stick to the snow and walk up. It takes a long time.
And you like that?
A little bit. Not as much because it is a lot of hard work.
So if you're touring, correct?
Yeah.
If you're doing that, how many runs would you do a day?
Oh, one.
One.
Maybe two, depending on how long. But it might take you 3 hours to walk up the mountain to take you 15 to 20 minutes to ski down.
Okay. I dabble a little bit in snowboarding. I'm by no means good. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about snowboarding is you can get to moderately good, anywhere between moderately good and advanced, and it's fun.
Yeah.
When you're useless and you're on the green runs, it's like you just spend the whole day on your ass.
Yeah.
But once you're moderately good and you can do...
It's so good.
Once you can at least go moderate speed on a blue run, from then up it's just fun.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Yeah.
And so I'm just good enough for a blue run.
Yeah, lovely.
But touring...
So touring I don't do as much.
That sounds horrible.
Touring is what my dad loves. So my
Right.
dad's like a mountaineer kind of. So he loves all that stuff. He loves being lost in the wilderness
Has
and
he
hard work.
sailed around the world?
No.
What's the story there?
So he and my mum bought a boat. It's like a pirate ship, we call it, because it's all sailboat. It's not a motorboat. And their plan is to sail it as far around the world as they want to or as they can manage.
Yep. How big? How long?
45 foot.
That's pretty big. So basketball court is 90 feet, so it's half a basketball court in length.
Yeah.
So that's pretty long.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's wide and it's heavy.
So it's a seagoing vessel.
It's a sea, yeah. So it's seaworthy is what they like to say. So it can go anywhere. Like there's boats that aren't technically like seaworthy. So if there's storms or if you're in the middle of the ocean and...
It's the kind of boat that if it were to capsize and sink, you'd be surprised not expecting it. It's kind of that's what seaworthy. That's how. Cause my dad's building my granddad's old boat. He's restoring that at the moment.
Oh, lovely.
Similar length, I think maybe 38, 40 feet, similar sort of size. And he's restoring that and doing that, and it's his hobby. And
Nice.
he says he's going to go sailing in it, but my mum is the worst for seasickness.
Oh, okay.
So I can't see it happening.
Yeah, so
But we'll see.
they don't really get seasick. And so my dad's done a lot of racing. So he did the Melbourne to Hobart quite a few times, and he's probably done other ones.
Your dad and my dad should get together and chat. They would be able to
They
talk.
should be the next podcast.
We should get them in. That's all right at my dad's alley.
Yeah, so he's done
less
a lot
with
of
the
that.
camping, but very much with the ocean stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so they bought a boat a few years ago and they were slowly doing it up. They bought it in the Whitsundays, and so we all collectively helped sail it down to Melbourne, and then it went down to Tassie and all the way around Tassie. Then it came back to Melbourne, and then they sailed it over to New Zealand and to the south side. They did all the south side and the Gordon River and the beautiful stuff
Gordon
down
River's
there.
amazing.
Yeah, and then now it's in the middle of the two islands. So we are all going
As
in
in King
Christmas.
Island?
Yeah,
Yep.
I believe. That's in the middle,
There's
right?
King Island and Flinders Island. There's two islands there in the Bass Strait. King Island's more on the Adelaide side of things, like the west coast.
I'm not sure.
Doesn't really matter.
Not sure.
It's on a tiny island between mainland Australia and Tasmania.
No, New Zealand.
Oh, New Zealand. Sorry. I thought you were talking about Tassie still. My bad.
Did I go
missed
too
a step.
quickly?
No.
So Melbourne around Tassie, and then back to Melbourne,
And now they're
and then New Zealand.
right. So it's some
Sorry.
island between the North and South Island of
So
New Zealand.
it's just anchored in the middle between the two islands.
Right.
And then what we're doing in Christmas is we're helping him sail it from the middle all the way up to Auckland and the north of the North Island.
Yep.
And then from there, he's planning on going further. So Tonga, I think they want to go to Fiji. I think a few places through there.
Cool.
I don't know how many places they've planned, but yeah, they'll slowly get it around everywhere until they either don't want to do it anymore or decide to do something else instead.
What's your passion like for the sailing and the less extreme water sports?
I like it. It's good fun. I I don't trust myself with it yet. Like my knowledge base for it is not great. Like
still low on the learning curve.
Yeah, so I do a lot of sailing with Dad, and we would sail a long time and be off the land for a while, but he's very much the captain and I'm very much his second hand. Yeah. Like I would not feel confident captaining a boat.
It's a big step. You got to get some hours on the water before you're doing that sort of stuff.
And I can do it when everything's going well. But it's when things don't go well, I think I would struggle with my knowledge base.
There's a saying for that, rough seas make good sailors. You haven't not quite there yet.
No, and there's been a few times where it's been rough, but he takes over, which is very appropriate. Yep. And so in that sense, I love it. But
45 feet for those, that's a big sailing boat. So there's a lot of ship to be controlling, a lot of boat to control.
Yeah.
So that means there's a lot of extra things that can go wrong when things do get a little hairy. And when you're on the ocean and you can't see land, that's not when you want things to be hairy and out of control. No. You want complete control. You want, rough weather comes and goes, but you want to be, okay, we're in control of this. I know what I'm doing. And
there's some times where there's nothing you can do because it is a vessel that is pushed by the natural, the environment and the motor, wind and all that stuff. So it does have a little diesel put motor, but
for emergencies.
Yeah, and docking and stuff and going into the bays and everything. And if there is absolutely no wind, you can use it and you can kind of chug along, but it's definitely not the main source of movement. And so there are times where the wind's just too strong or not strong enough where you kind of just have to be like, well, hopefully we have enough water to get to the other side.
Right, yeah.
And obviously the wind always comes back or it always shifts and stuff. So you just have to be aware of what you need to do in those situations.
It's a patience game, yeah.
Yeah, like low wind, the worry is drifting. So you want to make sure you're not really close to anything because it takes
drifting
you a while.
Drifting to a reef or something like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then high winds obviously is capsizing or sails ripping or something breaking or...
It's one thing that I don't think many people... we've just taken a tangent into sailing, which is great. I don't think many people realise that when you sail, you actually don't want too much wind because sails rip or the boat leans over too far.
Yeah.
You actually want the right amount of wind on the right angle.
Exactly.
It can't be directly up your bum, can't be to the front, and it can't be too strong.
Direction of wind is a whole other story. Yeah. If you're going in one direction, you need the wind to be in a certain other direction or else it's not very effective.
Yeah.
So when they sailed it over to New Zealand, they planned it to take them around 10 days and I think it took them around 14, 15.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah. So not as much wind at the start and then they halfway through the weather changed as it does. They can't control that and so eventually got over there. And so for us, it's very interesting being at home because sometimes you can't hear them. Do you have much contact? So they have like a satellite phone.
Yep.
So we get texts, but it's very much like the phone is only on when they turn it on.
Yeah.
So it's not like you can just call them up and be like, hey, you guys all right? Yeah, cool. All right,
so you got to wait till that.
You have to wait till they actively turn it on and send you out something or receive something.
Yeah,
so, if they say 10 days and it's been 12.
Get a little nervous?
Sometimes I do. Yeah. The big ones. Because there's so many things that you just can't control. Like, obviously, they're great sailors and they know what they're doing. But it's the same. Like, I sometimes get little butterflies when Dad goes on a plane, which is silly because we know that they're
Statistically speaking, planes are super safe, yeah.
But you still
he taught the people how to keep it safe. So
exactly, but you still get that little tingle. The ocean's a little bit more because it's so large. And the scary part is even if everything's out of control, if someone goes overboard at night, the chances of you finding them
pretty
is not very likely. So they're good and they clip themselves on at night if they're outside. But that was one thing we sailed as younger, and if it got really rough, they'd lock us downstairs and they'd lock us in, and then there'd just be the two of them up in the boat, and we'd have to wait for the weather to calm down before we could come back out. It is what it is, You just got to be smart and you got to be safe. Just like the rock climbing and all that stuff.
Perfect segue.
It's an extremely dangerous sport, but if you know what you're doing,
let's go back a step. How did you? So I've been bouldering, which is like where you do indoor rock climbing, but it's only 2 meters high and there's crash mats everywhere, and you just go until your forearms are dead, and it's just fun. And if you suck, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
Rock climbing though is a completely different ball game. How did you get into it?
Dad,
of course.
Dad, of course. Yes. So he's a big rock climber. He started rock climbing when he was, I asked him actually this the other day because I was like, how the hell did you get into this as well? He went on a school trip rock climbing outdoors and liked it, and so started doing more of it, obviously under people who knew what they were doing, until he was old enough and had done it enough and experienced enough and had learnt enough to start doing it himself. And then he did it himself with some mates who also knew what they were doing, and then brought mum along when they started getting together, and she started doing it. And then her brother really liked it, and he was also a bit of an adrenaline junkie. And so he and my dad started climbing, and they did a lot of climbing together. And so they grew up climbing very hard stuff and very, very tricky stuff. I'm pretty sure they did something that was too hard and had to sleep on the face of the rock and then continue climbing the next day because they couldn't get through it. Like, when it's dark and you're on the rock, that's just stupid.
Pretty extreme stuff, yeah. And so you then you've been exposed to it your whole life?
Yeah, again, so every Easter we used to go to Raffles and we'd stay there for a week, and we would mum and when we were younger, we would kind of just hang around and watch them do climbs. And then when we got older, we started doing climbs, and now it's at a point where we actively have to go and do it ourselves and with Dad and organise times because everyone has their own schedule. But because we grew up with it, it's so much fun. And so Alex, my partner, started doing it with us, a few years ago when he started to be seriously in the picture and, hanging around and stuff, and told him about it, and he was really interested. And he has an amazing reach. He's 6'7", so
long guy.
Long guy, strong guy, but lean. So he's the perfect climber because he has the amazing reach and the hand size and the limb length, but has no extra mass on him. Like, everything is quite perfect in that sense of a climber. Like, he's strong without being too strong and too heavy.
Because you need to be strong to be climbing. You need to have good grip strength, shoulders, all that kind of stuff. But you also need to be able to use your levers. And the thing I've learned is that if you try and muscle your way through climbs, you'll very quickly fatigue.
Yeah.
So the good climbers don't actually work their way up a mountain. They kind of pivot their way up mountains and up faces and up the rock and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely.
And so it's about finding a hold, getting your feet in position, and then like sort of swinging or like moving yourself to the next position without having to wrestle it.
Yeah, you definitely have to. It's very much an art. Lots of people like to say that, and you're one with the rock and all that stuff, which is quite philosophical, I guess. And it's not how necessarily everyone thinks of it, but
I like to think of it
true to an extent.
Less of an like art is nice, and like it's a very mindful type of event because you have to be completely focused and things like that. But there is a definite technical skill that you can learn. Definitely, because the difference between an art and a science is an art is kind of, well, you can't teach someone how to draw. You can teach them the technique of drawing. Yeah. But if they don't have the eye and the control, they can't draw. Yeah. But like with a science, there are certain skills that are better than others, and it's like you can quantify that doing it this way is better than that way. Yeah. So being a very good mountain climber has a level. Everything has a level of art to it. Yeah. So there's two skill levels to climbing. One is understanding how to move around the rock and how to get up the rock in the most efficient and effective way, which is a skill, and you're physically training to do that, and as well as seeing the right things and going for the right things. And tactics and strategy. Yeah. And then the second skill is the knowledge base behind the safety. So the ropes and the gear and making sure that you're protecting yourself, because some of the climbs can be 3 stories high. So if you're that high up off the ground, you have to be able to protect yourself if you fall. That's why, like, I don't solo climb. I am trad climbing, so everything is protected. What's trad? So traditional climbing is... Traditional, sorry. It is when you place your own gear. So you have a certain amount of gear that's connected to your harness, and it's, on slings or however you like to carry it. A belt kind of thing, yep. And as you climb up the mountain, every 2 to 3 meters, you put a piece of protection into the rock, into a crack or into a hole or something that works well with your gear, and you clip your rope through that piece of protection. So you climb up another 3-4 meters, put another piece in. So by the time you're 30 to 40 meters up, you have 10 pieces or 8 pieces of protection in the rock. So if you do fall halfway up to the next spot where you're going to break, you don't fall to the ground 20 meters below you. And die. You fall to your piece of equipment, and that catches you, and then you have to climb back up from there. So the second... Which is a much better option than option A. Yeah. So free
free climbing, which is like free solo and stuff, is all the documentaries you see.
What is that? Was it you talking to me about the documentary the other day? Someone mentioned to me
there's free solo and there's Dawn Wall. There's two of them.
Free solo. Someone told me about that.
Yeah. And have you watched it?
No, not yet. I'm going to after this though now.
It's amazing, and there's a part of the documentary which say people who don't really know how to climb aren't really too worried about what he's doing, and then people who do know how to climb and know what's going on are scared, absolutely senseless. Yeah, I'm trying to think of an appropriate word there.
Keep this PG. Yeah, so they are terrified of what. I was like, what is he doing?
Yeah, because he's effectively climbing like hundreds of meters, or I don't even know how high up.
Is it
with
Yosemite
no protection?
Climbs?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yosemite. I think is it El Capitan?
Yeah.
Something in Yosemite. Yep. I believe it's that one.
And he climbs that free, so no trad, no traditional safety hooks.
No ropes, no
just him and
gear,
some chalk.
just him and chalk. And so there's a process to it. So he said at one point in the documentary, it's the closest he can get to perfection.
Right. So it's
such a
mastering
high
his
level
craft type thing.
Exactly. Because it's such a high level climb, there's really only 1 to maybe 2 ways of getting up that wall. And so if he can do that whole thing and get the whole way up by himself with no help, without dying, it's almost like he has perfected that wall.
That's his Michael Jordan moment. That's his...
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And so he's done a lot of stuff, but that was always a big one for him. And lots of people who climb really, really well, there's only one option. And so they'll think about the wall, they'll train, they'll do sections of the wall. They might down climb to a hard part and try it a few times before they actually go through and actually attempt it, and so people get stuck on sections and mesmerized by parts and then just keep doing them until they can perfect the whole way. And so the documentary was about him and about him trying to figure out how to get through all the tricky spots and practicing them all, and then being able to, at the very end, see if he can do the whole thing.
Don't
from
spoil
top
it.
to bottom.
Don't spoil it for me. I haven't seen it yet.
That's the premise of the documentary.
And so it's called Free Solo.
Yeah.
Netflix, Amazon.
Yes, Netflix.
It's on Netflix. Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
I just rewatched it the other day. It was just on TV, I think, and I was like, yes.
And so, what's the biggest climb you've ever done in terms of height?
I've done a 4 pitch. So our rope is 50 meters. So a pitch is pretty much a rope's length, give or take. So probably like 200 meters.
Where'd you do that? That's incredibly high.
Arapiles, 150, 200 meters maybe. Arapiles.
Where's that?
It is Horsham.
Oh, yep. Okay.
Just past there. Grampians.
Yeah, in the western part of Victoria, the state that we live in.
Yeah, so
I suppose 4 hours west of Melbourne-ish.
4 to 5, yeah. Probably 4's more accurate. Yep. You know where the Grampians is?
Yep. So I grew up that way. I grew up in Portland, which is just south of the Grampians.
How do you not know where Arapiles is then?
I heard of it.
So
not so. My family was less on the adventurous side of things when I was growing up.
So people say, which I don't know if it's technically true or not, but Arapiles is like a outlier section of the Grampians.
Right.
So
it's on the north edge of things.
Yeah. So if you have the Grampians, you have all the exits. You passed all the Grampian signs and everything like that, and just past that is Arapiles.
Cool. I'll know for when I'm up to doing 200 meter. climbs.
Some are shorter. Some are only 15 meters, 12 meters. You can go from 12 meter starting points to 200 meters.
So how long does it? We'll need to wrap up now. We're well over an hour for this episode. But this has been good. This is really interesting because I knew some of these stories, but this level of depth's been fantastic.
Yeah.
How long does it take you in terms of minutes and hours to do a 200 meter climb? I hope it's hours. Please say it's hours.
Yeah, it is.
Okay,
yeah. It takes you time because everything takes time. Like
and you want to be quite diligent and pay close attention to detail.
People die because of human error. Yeah, everything with rock climbing is because you make a mistake. So you just have to avoid that and make sure you don't make a mistake because a mistake can be life-threatening. So it probably would take maybe 3 hours, 2 hours.
And so you spend that whole time climbing. Do you rest? Do you stop for sandwiches?
Yeah.
Is there a 7-Eleven along the way?
You rest. So you know how I said before there was pitches? So our rope...
And so pitch is 50 metres. Well,
our rope's 50 metres and you don't want it to be close to that, because if you run out of rope, you're in trouble.
Yeah, you need to have some slack.
You need to have some slack
buffer,
on the end where they're belaying you, because you don't want it to go through their belay device, because then they don't actually have you. And you need slack at the top, because when you get to the top of your pitch, so usually it's a ledge or it's an area where you can hold, you put protection in and you tie your rope into all your protection pieces, and then you can bring the other person up on the rope through your protection.
Kind of reset.
Yeah, so you have like a locked in spot. So if they fall, they're not going to pull you down.
Gotcha. Yep.
So most times if you have a 50 metre rope, you want max 40 metres, but nothing's that long really that we climb. It's usually between 15 to 38 maybe. And so you do that section then you
so tie it off, reset, do the next section, and kind of like keep overlapping like that.
Yeah. So if you start first, you go to the first pitch, and then the person follows you up. You have a bit of a chat, debrief, and then that person continues to the second pitch, and then you follow them up. So you just alternate through. Okay. So you do have rests, but
and obviously taking your time with this, you don't want to be fatigued by the end of it. You don't want to make mistakes towards the end, so you take your time. And so 3 hours of cruisy climbing.
Exactly. Yeah, and there are speed climbers out there, but. Nah, not about that. I'd rather take my time, make sure I'm protected, and make sure we're safe.
Enjoy it. Enjoy the process. Yeah.
The view, the wall, and everything like that. Yeah, it's very exhilarating. It's very nerve-wracking. It's good for my mental state.
Yeah, is it meditative? Is it like this? Like you just spend 3 hours of just like focused on a singular task?
Yeah, I find it very much. It calms me down by the end, not during. It's quite challenging for me, especially if I'm leading. If you're following, the rope's above you. So if you fall, you're just taking the slack. But when you lead, the rope is below you. So if you fall, you're falling double, because you have to fall to your piece of protection
and then past
it until you get to the slack that's below you.
Have you fallen from lead?
I have not fallen from lead, but a piece has popped on me before. So I've fallen a long distance before.
What's the long distance?
6 meters, but at like a pendulum.
Oh.
Yeah, it was not nice.
6 meters, and so you drop and then swing. So you crash into the wall. You crash to you swing to the side of the wall.
So there was like a traverse across, and I had taken the wrong line. Again, human error.
Mm-hmm.
I had
valuable lesson.
Taken the wrong line, so you kind of follow the protection, and the protection was at my feet when really it should be at your eye height.
Okay.
So I had gone too high. So I had tried to down climb to get back to.
So you realised your error. Tried to come back.
And then at that point...
For those listening, Meg's using her hands to illustrate. And this is working brilliantly for me. And if you're watching, that's great for you. Not so much for those on audio. But keep describing. You're doing a good job.
Traverse. So I've gone across the wall too high. And then so I tried to climb down to continue to traverse across.
Fix the mistake, yep.
But as I was climbing down, because it was not very climbed, it was a bit mossy because I was too high, and I slipped. And so I fell all the way down.
6 meters?
Maybe like 3 meters, but then the piece.
We've just talked about 200 meter climbs and 100 meter climbs, and then like 6 meters, 3 meters, whatever. That's like a basketball ring is 3 meters.
Yeah.
So you've fallen the height of that, not onto the floor though, but into empty space.
Yeah. So it was probably like 2 to 3, and then a piece popped.
Oh.
So the protection. So you put the protection in the wall and you put your rope through. And it was a bit of a dodgy traverse, so you want to protect it as much as you can. And the piece closest to me popped out of the wall. So
came with the rope.
So that made the 3 maybe a 4, 4.5. And then the next piece caught me. Thank God. And so I swung all the way around. So if I was on the right side of all the protection,
and you're going across,
I am going across to the left. I had fallen, I'd swung all the way under the piece of protection and continued on because I was in empty space. And then there was like a cliff, and so I swung up and tapped the cliff and then came back down and rested. And by that point, because of the amount of space I had fallen, I was below the climb. So I had to try and get myself back up to where the climb started and continue on.
And how far off the ground were you at the bottom of your fall? So you'd fallen 5, 6 meters?
I could not tell you.
We're talking 100?
No, not that far. It was probably the second pitch, so it was probably already maybe 40 meters above.
So we're talking like...
Or maybe max, maybe 30.
We're talking like 10-story building, 8-story building.
Do you reckon?
I don't know. How big's the story? Story's like 3 meters?
It's hard to tell because I wasn't looking down. Yeah. I was worried about up.
3 meters per story in a building, 40 divided by 3, looking at 13 meters. 13 stories rather.
Yeah,
for
maybe.
40 minutes.
Yeah. So maybe not that high. Maybe it was only like 20, 25 metres.
It's still a eight-story building.
Yeah.
It's still certain depth.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything above, like, they say sometimes climbing the most dangerous part is the closest you are to the ground. Because if you fall and your rope doesn't catch you in time, you hit the ground. And the ground is solid rock. And that is not ideal. Whereas if you are 30 metres above the ground and you fall and the rope takes you 5 metres to catch you, at least you're still in the air.
Yeah.
There's nothing underneath you that
you might smack into the wall, but that'd be about the extent of it.
Yeah. So that time when I fell, I bumped my knee and I got a little bit of...
Oh, no.
I got a sore knee. Like, I got some swelling and inflammation that took a few weeks after that to calm down, but onward.
It's much better than the alternative. So when the protection, when the protection popped, you had a bit of weight on that. So your heart like come out your throat as you continue the next part of the fall?
I did make a bit of noise. I did. And that, I think, as well stems a little bit of anxiety about leading because a piece has never popped on me before and that piece popped.
How common is it for a piece to pop in general terms?
Depends how good you are because you place your piece. So if you're not a good climber, pieces will pop. If you are a good climber, pieces will not pop because you know how to put your pieces in.
Right.
So you have all these different sizes and different pieces that you put in the wall.
Options for different types of cracks.
Exactly. So you have a cam device which is kind of has little fringes, and then you can press the fringes into itself so it becomes quite narrow. So if you have a crack, your fringes come in so it slips in, and then when you let go they pop out to the wall so they secure you so you can't fall.
Kind of like the ski Velcro from before. Similar sort of mechanism. It's just like goes in narrow and then the teeth bite into the wall.
Yeah, so if you have some sort of like fat at the back and narrowing into the outside, you can make it small to get to the fatter stuff in the back and then let it go so it clicks into the small so it can't come out of the crack.
Yeah, cool.
So that would be a good piece. Another one is if you have a crack that's falling, because everything needs to come down because that's the way you fall.
That's how gravity will work, yeah.
So if you have a crack in the wall that is like a V, downward V, you can put we call them wires. So they're just like a piece of metal that are like wide at the top and thin at the bottom. So they're like their own little V.
Fit into the V,
so you can put it in the V, and so if you push down, it's going to jam in and it's not going to come out. But again, if you put the wrong size or if you don't put it in the right way or if you think that it has more room to expand and it doesn't, then it can pull out of the crack, it can pop out of the V. It's an art. It's very much a skill to know what piece of equipment goes into what size of crack in the wall.
Fascinating.
Yeah, so that's what stage I'm at. So I used to follow my dad all my life, and the last year has been transitioning to lead. And I'm at the point now where I can lead pretty much. Everything you lead is always a few grades lower than what you can actually climb because purely the time to put protection in and all of that stuff, you always climb lower than what you actually really can without leading. So I'm just a lot lower initially. So everything's quite easy for me to technically climb, but it's a bit more of a mental challenge to find the right spots for my safety and equipment. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Meg Ragauskas, thank you so much for being on the show today.
No worries.
You have both terrified me and like enlightened me. I feel like I've learned more in this episode about so many different things than I thought was possible. Thanks for joining us today.
No worries. Sorry it took so long.
No, I didn't want to stop. That was fantastic. Thank you very much. And we'll see you guys in the next one.
Sounds good.
And before you go, hear from our alumni about the online mentorship.
I learnt the theory stuff at uni, but I didn't know how to apply it, and coming to Core Advantage was how I bridged that gap. So I knew the stuff, but I didn't know how to do the stuff.
It was something that I needed to do personally for my own development, and it's allowed me to work in elite sport for now 5 years. So it was a massive help.
I think mentorship is really important, and being able to ask questions all the time, and the Core Advantage course allows that because there is a big team of people that you can ask questions.
I get to train professional athletes every week, work really closely with professional athletes, which is awesome. A lot of the skills that I'm applying I learned through the program at Core Advantage.
It's not just something that you read and then think about and then go, oh, how does that tie into everything? It's something practical that you can turn around and go, this is exactly how I'm going to apply it. And the concepts that you learn help you as a coach, as a professional, as a person. Yeah, it's awesome. Definitely go and do it.
Semester 3 of the mentorship, opening September 1, 2019.